So today we have a very exciting guest, Anna Wang, who is one of the co-founders and CTO of Searchlight AI. And so excited to have you here today, Anna.
Thanks for having me. Excited to chat.
Wonderful. Well, why don't we get this started with just a little bit of context for the listeners to yourself, your company, and just very quickly how you came to be in the position that you are.
My background is a bit of a windy road before I started Searchlight. I studied computer science at Stanford for undergrad. In those summers, I did stints at Uber, Google, McKinsey, and none of them actually fit quite right. Went back to Stanford to get my master's in artificial intelligence, where I was a co-lecturer in ethics and AI, as well as the AI courses, and got really fascinated at kind of the potential AI to really solve societal challenges, but also the responsibilities of what the right way to do that might be. At a certain point in my master's, I had a chance to take a fork in the road, and I ended up doing Y Combinator. And that's what led me to start Searchlight with my twin sister and co-founder, Carrie. And at Searchlight today, I lead product design and engineering. The problem that we solve is a really interesting one. It's really personal to me. So the problem we solve is helping companies match the right talent to the right roles. As a twin, I happen to have the same resume as my sister, and I also happen to look the same. We went through a lot of hiring process on our own, and we were really treated like the same person. And we realized that the traditional hiring processes really cannot truly distinguish what makes someone different and their unique style. Now, not only is that harmful to the company, who is 50% of the time likely to make the wrong decision, it's also not really equitable to the person interviewing for the role, right? And as a twin, I care a lot about fairness. And so I just thought that this made Carrie and I really the right people to solve the problem. So Carrie's background is different from mine. So she actually has a background in organizational behavior, right? And so by bringing AI and behavioral science together, we can really help companies hire the right people faster. And that's really what Searchlight does.
And I'm curious, I've actually never seen two twins co-found a company together, especially two that seem to have like pretty similar backgrounds. Both of you went to Stanford, both of you did Google, both of you at McKinsey for a bit. So I'm curious, who inspired who in each of these decisions as you took each step?
Great question. I think as a twin, one of the best gifts that it's given me is that we're constantly pushing each other. And it's very much a pattern of asking each other why not at every step. Carrie and I, we grew up the daughters of first-generation immigrants, really grew up with not much at all. But because we both had this hunger to do more and create value for our family, ourselves, and for society, at each point when we hit this kind of like insurmountable challenge, we always ask each other, why not? And so at Stanford, I was the one that asked Carrie, hey, like, let's toy out some ideas together. And then she was the one that said, we should apply to YC. At the time, we actually didn't know anybody who had gone through YC personally. And to me, it felt like this dream that people like me, right, didn't necessarily get to do. But because Carrie had the kind of audacity to push us forward, we got in. And at that point, we had a fork in the road, right? So McKinsey or YC. And at that point, I said, we really got to go for the startup. But that's really in terms of challenging ourselves and creating the most value. I think that that's really what is aligned, right, to our mission. So we took the leap. So I think we mutually help each other, and I'm very grateful for that.
I love that. It sounds like you make each other stronger, right, and really complement. So that's right. Great to see. So I'm curious, Anna, now that you guys have spent a number of years working together as co-founders and building Searchlight out, what's something that you've learned maybe about Carrie and likewise, just in terms of having to work together and build a company from the ground up and not just be sisters, you're now colleagues as well and entrepreneurs together?
Every founding relationship is like a marriage, and it's very complicated. Carrie and I simply have a stronger bond, right? And just a deeper foundation than the average founding pair or founding team. And I think what that has given me is just more appreciation, right, for all the twists and turns of the startup journey and how Carrie and I have both kind of like risen to the occasion. And Carrie and I, we have a lot of complementary skills. So at Searchlight today, I run product engineering and Carrie runs go-to-market. And Carrie has single-handedly closed 7 figures in revenue without any prior sales experience. And so I'm just constantly awed by her ability to learn, right, and to be persistent and to build genuine relationships in the industry. That's something that's valuable no matter where you go. It's something that I have been really grateful for, right? The relationships that we both have built with our venture capitalists, our customers, our team. And so Carrie's ability to really constantly reinvent and to do sales has been phenomenal for us.
Oh, I love that. So I'm curious, you talked a little bit about the high level vision of Searchlight and bringing in matching talent to the right companies and bring it back to your own experience. Maybe you could share a little bit more about how you do that, who your typical kind of clients are, and what makes you guys different in a sea of recruiting tech and sourcing tech companies.
Definitely, right. Especially in 2023, we saw a huge market consolidation, as well as a rise in AI-enabled recruiting tech products. So with Searchlight, we've been doing this for 4.5 years, right? 5.5 years. And we've been building AI for that amount of time. And the benefit of that is that Searchlight, one of the 3 pillars that we stand on is that quality AI requires quality data. And when we started Searchlight, we looked out and we just saw that while there was a lot of data, the quantity of data is very high, the quality of data is super low. And that's actually reflected in the poor outcomes, right? So 50% of hires don't work out in 18 months, and 89% of the hires are due to a behavioral mismatch, right? A soft skills mismatch. And so we started to really go after data gaps in the market, kind of being able to gather our own data through proprietary surveys, right, in our own platform. So that's one pillar. The second pillar is responsible AI. And so I'm very passionate about fairness. I studied it at Stanford. I taught it at Stanford. And so for us, from day one, we really focused on making sure the foundations were good and building up. We've done internal bias auditing for years. And actually, just this past year, we got a third party to conclusively determine and audit that Searchlight is without bias. So that's something we're really proud of. And the third pillar is that we're actually trained on real post-hire outcomes. We are leading thinkers in this concept called quality of hire, which is what is actually the value that someone brings to your business after they join. Most AI tech focus on, did you hire the person? But we already know that that's wrong at the time. And it really perpetuates bias. And so Searchlight focuses on training on actual post-hire outcomes. So with these 3 things, I really don't see any other product in the market doing what we do, right? So our focus on proprietary data and skills. Secondly, responsible AI foundations. And then third, our focus on actual post-hire outcomes and quality of hire.
Makes sense. Fascinating. I love to see the end-to-end kind of component of how you think about it. And so obviously you're more on the technical side, powering Searchlight to differentiate there. Maybe you could share a little bit about what it looks like under the hood of Searchlight. When we talk about AI, and we know obviously a lot of infrastructure providers, a lot of ways to fine-tune a model. How have you guys built Searchlight? Any tools that you use that you could share, or just to give some context to what it looks like today?
Absolutely. I think that every startup today needs to clearly decide when to build and buy, right? Now, I'm not going to share every build and buy decision that we've made, but certainly it's one that we have thought about. We see product building, right, as a series of rapid iterations. And so we've most often in the beginning chosen to emphasize the data that's truly going to make our AI unique. So we have this very strong architecture layer. It's very modular and has a very strong data hygiene layer, right? So data lineage, how are we cleaning the data, structuring data. And actually, because we took such great care in structuring the data and ensuring quality from day one, we haven't really had a lot of technical debt around that. And the components that we are using in our AI has been shareable with our products. And that's been a huge win for us. Highly recommend taking the care to do that from day one. So above this kind of data layer, we have this high quality modular software architecture where we're kind of sending the data to the right place. We gain our data through surveys. So we have a really flexible survey architecture as well. We also have deep integrations with other third-party platforms to get more data in to augment the data that we already have. And so that's kind of like the layer above the data. And then the third layer above that is really the algorithms, right? The patentable IP that we've developed to use that data to help our customers achieve better hiring outcomes, like 40% faster time to hire, 20% higher retention, overall better quality of hire. And so this IP is things like our combination of models that we built in-house, right? So before LLMs came around, we spent a lot of time developing our own regression and classification algorithms, right? And then we also have a skills mapping IP, so we can go into a current employee pool and understand their skills. And then, of course, we have those LLMs that we've brought in over time to also work with the data we have. Those LLMs are a mix of off-the-shelf ones, right, to help us iterate faster, but we're also in the process of toying with our own, fine-tuning our own to, of course, maintain good outcomes, but also drive costs down.
Makes sense. And as we think about how you best serve your customers, it begs the question, what does your ideal customer profile look like? Who uses Searchlight? Who is the best, prospective customer that feels the pain point that you can address? And maybe what sectors are they in?
That is the most important question for a startup, right? Which is, who are you actually selling to? Who is the persona? At Searchlight, we are very focused on helping the VP of talent acquisition the head of recruiting at a 500 to 5,000 person company. Because at that point, they're charged with consistent hiring practices that bring in headcount, but they still care about quality and the culture that they're building with every successive hire. The VP of TA also has very key stakeholders, right? And so they have a very important relationship with the department heads that they work with. And I have particular empathy with them working with the CTO. CTOs like me are really tough. We ask a lot of hard questions. We want objectivity, right? We want science. And so we really power the VP of TA to work with stakeholders like the CTO in explaining how our tech is bringing in better hires. And then, of course, CEO should also care a lot about the quality of their talent because their people are their greatest asset. And so we also work with the CEO, right? We power the VP of TA with a lot of data around how we are helping bring in better talent. And we're learning as we hire so that each successive hire is better than us.
I'm curious, in a world where everyone has access to more data, right? Everyone has some access to utilize AI and other technologies. That also carries forward to the candidate. And so we're seeing candidates become better at tailoring themselves to prospective roles, to looking more like your ideal candidate. And so I'm curious, what does that do for your solution in a world where not only are you trying to match the perfect talent for the perfect role in your client organization, but also the candidate could be trying to make themselves look better and you have to go a level deeper, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Now, the thing is a great recruiter and a great hiring manager doesn't see hiring as kind of like a win-lose. It's always a win-win, right? And what we at Searchlight really care about, and we've done this from day one, is being super candidate-centric. We want to help every candidate tell their story and find the right company for them. Because if they find the wrong company, I mean, that's not only bad for the company, it's also bad for them, right? Like being in a bad job is poor, it's bad for your mental health. It's horrible for stress and you're not doing your best work. Now, how Searchlight does that in the age of AI is, well, of course, the obligation is on our tech to really try to go and find that talent story. A basic LLM, and I see a lot of kind of demos out there, right, of you're throwing an entire resume into OpenAI and asking, is this good? Well, that is like the worst prompt engineering you could do. And I think it's like, it's meant to be dramatic because it's trying to show the limits of the LLM on its own. I completely agree with that. And so at Searchlight, it's not really just the use of AI that makes us differentiated. It's about how we structure data, how we augment that data, and what other context are we feeding into the AI to make our recommendation unique. And so at Searchlight, we really focus on AI that is tailored to the company, right, for that role on a team level. And so we're not just taking raw data input and throwing it in. We're structuring it, we're providing context, and we're taking a very candidate-driven approach to help them find the right company based on their talent story.
Got it. And I'm curious at Searchlight, just as you think about solving and trying to, build context for a client, are you also building it for the specific type of role, a specific department? I mean, has it become very narrowed down that if you're hiring for a senior product manager or role X, the context gets that specific to really find the right candidate?
Short story, yes. We are very unique, right? And we can get a fingerprint of a company down to a team, a department. And that makes our recommendation stronger and better, right? Because actually what we found through our own data, that the culture and success profile on the sales team is very different from the from the success profile of the engineering team. Yeah. So when the success profiles are so different, you can't use, right, the same context, right, to provide the recommendation. However, when you zoom out more broadly, our tech has always been built to be generalizable across roles, right? So we work with anything from outreach managers to marketing, product. We even help hire mechanics is like a non-tech example. And it also spans industries, right? Now, that's what we wanted from the beginning because we didn't want to build a tool that only serviced certain companies and certain populations. We really wanted to build a tool that would elevate hiring and improve hiring outcomes for everybody. And
also, I'm curious, as you've been on your journey, you've seen a number of different macro environments, which I'm sure bring their own challenges and their own focus areas. So I'm sure you were going through a period where people couldn't hire fast enough and speed was just absolutely critical. And then we've obviously been through more of a period recently where there have been hiring freezes and maybe even layoffs. And so I'm curious, as the macro environment changes, How does that impact your relationship with your clients and what they're looking for and how they depend on Searchlight?
It's a really good question. I've been doing this startup since I was 22. That was 2019. In that time, the market has changed 3 times, right? And each time we've had to remain agile and innovative and very customer-centric. In the most recent wave, the result on our customers is really that we have to be more cost conscious and we have to have a very strong business case. But I also want to share the context that at Searchlight, we've seen almost zero avoidable churn, right? So the value of our product is there. The only time when people leave Searchlight is when they stop hiring. Okay, so it's unavoidable or the company has shut down, which has unfortunately happened in the past 18 months. Now, when we think about how do we actually provide value in a world where people are very cost conscious, it actually comes down to a much better product. And that's a challenge that I would take on every single day because our team is phenomenal in launching amazing products. We actually had one of the biggest product launches since start of our company in Q3, Q4 of last year. And we're actually doing another feature launch as early as next week. And so all we have to do, okay, I'm making it sound simple, but really what the key is just continue to show that the value you're bringing is undeniable. The rate of innovation is very high. Yeah. That your goals as a business, as a vendor, as a partner is completely aligned to that of your customer company, right? We also want to help them cut costs. We also want them to find the absolute best applicant out of a sea of thousands, right? We want to make sure they have an efficient interviewing process that's not taking productive hours away from their business. And so I think it's good. It's very clarifying. It's what should have been happening from day one. And I think we're just returning to those strong principles.
I'm curious, you mentioned a big product launch late last year. Maybe you could share a little bit more about what you launched and why you're excited about it.
Yes, so the big launch last year was Searchlight's TRACY. So TRACY is a talent recommendation agent customized to you. And she actually embodies a lot of what I already talked about. But what we did is we really personified her, right? By calling her TRACY, we wanted to show that she is a partner to every recruiter to help with everything from application screening to behavioral assessments, reference checks, and post-hire surveys, right? TRACY is here to reduce the manual work that a lot of recruiters have to do in their day-to-day while helping people make better decisions, right? And by kind of positioning in that way, we've seen phenomenal reception from the market. The value prop is very clear. That gets us very excited, right? And so the smaller feature launch that we're doing is we're constantly evolving the various offerings in Searchlight to get more and more advanced and deliver better outcomes to our customers.
You're obviously someone that has the technical vision of the company. And so I'm curious, how far or how sophisticated could TRACY become? Like, do you have a vision of, like, I'd love in a future state that, TRACY could do X, Y, or Z, or we could get to the point to which, we'd be able to support so much more our client partners?
My vision for TRACY is that she can work across industries and across companies, across teams in the way she does today, but have a unique fingerprinting and mapping of the right person for that role, right? And we do have that right now to some degree. It's just bigger umbrellas, right? Like job family, yes, we have that. Industry, we have that. But I want her to get so specific, right? So that she delivers a truly intelligent and personalized experience for every recruiter and hiring manager, which, by the way, I think is the future, right? I think the future of HR recruiting is personalized and intelligent. Now, the broader vision around all this is that I've always been candidate-centric from day one. I've always wanted to help people find the right job for them and unlock economic opportunity. And really what I'd like to do with TRACY is I'd like to offer her to everyone looking for a job or everybody looking to upskill, right? Yeah. Because this knowledge should not be locked away for the companies. I think that it should be beneficial to the job seeker. And actually, even today, everyone invited to go through the Searchlight process for a company gets their own Searchlight profile by default, and it's up to them on where to share it. The vision that we see by providing TRACY to a job seeker is not this like arms race. I actually see it as net beneficial because when everyone has awareness, everyone has knowledge, I believe the job seeker will seek out roles that are the right ones for them. It actually will be beneficial to the companies because they'll be looking at a more qualified pool, more self-aware pool, and then they can use their knowledge to help almost like coach those job seekers on why not this role at the company is the right one for them, right? And so The best recruiters today are already doing this. We're just going to help do it at scale.
I think earlier on in the interview, you talked about the vision of, really supporting an applicant through the recruiting journey and beyond. And so I'm curious, we've talked a lot about finding the right candidate, supporting them. Today, how much further do you go through the process? Do you support with interviews and debriefing and comparison of shortlisted candidates after on-sites? I'm just curious, how far down the funnel do you go?
We span the hiring funnel, right? So we have applicant screening.
Yeah.
We have behavioral assessments, which can be sent before or after the first recruiter screen. We have reference checks, which companies actually do as early as the on-site interview with Searchlight, because it's such a positive experience for the candidate and the data is amazing. And then we also take our learnings and we can actually customize interview guides because it's just interview questions. So that's already happening. It's actually just not something that I emphasize. And then post-hire, we'll do onboarding surveys, right? Because we care a lot about post-hire outcomes, as I mentioned. And so we'll check in with the new hire, we'll check in with the manager, and we'll understand this bi-directional fit to the role so that the company has, for the very first time, visibility on how well they hire, which, by the way, most companies shockingly don't have. I do think that recruiting is one of the very few functions in a modern company today that doesn't have a feedback loop. Yeah. And so Searchlight becomes that feedback loop.
Yeah, makes sense. So I'm curious, obviously executing on your vision and building out all the parts of the business that you have require funds, support, mentorship along the way. And so I would love to start with maybe one of the first decisions that you made, which was to go apply, obviously get in and participate in the YC program. Maybe you could just share a little bit about your experience with YC, especially to those that are considering it for themselves.
I had a fantastic experience with YC, and actually I'm grateful that it was a no-brainer for me. I do respect that right now. I think there's been a lot more accelerators come out, right? And I do understand that for some repeat founders or more experienced founders that there's some more trade-offs for them. But when you think about where I was in life, I was 22 years old. I hadn't even graduated yet from Stanford. Technical, didn't know much about SaaS. It was just a no-brainer accelerator. And the benefits that YC has brought to me include not only the advice from fantastic partners, who I still talk to this day, but also community, right? Great friends from the YC badge. Hiring, the YC brand is really strong. I think I hired a lot of my amazing teammates from work at a startup, which is YC's internal job board. And it was just a really positive signal that propelled us for the rest of our fundraising journey, because YC is great at creating this pressure cooker environment for you to focus on the metrics. Yeah. And then we actually met Dan Levine from Accel at YC's alumni demo day, which isn't even the actual demo day. It was before. We met Dan Levine at Accel. He moved super fast with high conviction. I wouldn't have gone out without YC, right? And so we can just kind of see the value of YC continue to compound. Of course, everyone's experience in YC is very different. I had a fantastic one.
Makes sense. That's great. And it's great to see how it all kind of played into the wider role and getting your investors today and probably supporting you as you think through that vision. So I'm curious, we're about out of time, but I want to ask, you've now seen multiple stages of Searchlight's journey. You've gone through YC, you've raised money, you've seen the product change over time. What is one piece of advice you would share with prospective entrepreneurs as they start their journey, as you did many years ago? Something that you would like to share with them that you wish someone would have told you earlier in your journey?
There's a lot that you don't know, right? Until you actually take the jump. So I think the number one thing to do is take the jump. But I already did that. So what's something that someone didn't tell me earlier? I think that advice is always contextual and it's really valuable at a certain point in time. And in my journey so far, I've actually had conflicting advice given to me at different times and both were good. So for example, the YC advice from Paul Graham was start small, continue to iterate with customers and land at this amazing product, which I did in the beginning. And it really was fantastic and it worked for us. And then when we raised the A from Keith Rabois, he told me that building a company is like a movie. It's like producing a movie. And so you have to start with a vision and then you cast the actors, aka hire the team, right? And then that's what we started doing from the Series A. And that's also worked for us very well because even right now, Searchlight's brand is incredibly strong. Mm-hmm. People constantly tell me we look bigger than we are, which is good in the world of B2B SaaS. So advice always has context, right? It's hard to kind of give a blanket piece of advice. But for anyone who's in the founder journey, I would just say, the only way to really find out is to start and then decide for yourself along the way what the right advice is.
I love that. Advice has context, including the advice that you're giving about advice.
Absolutely. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm constantly hedging, right? I'm like trying to give you more information about why I did certain things at a certain time, because that was my experience, right? It's not going to be true for everybody.
No, that makes perfect sense. So Anna, I think we're all out of time. Just want to thank you so much for talking about your own journey from the beginnings to where you are to where you're going. It really is great to be able to share. If we do have prospective clients, interested candidates, anyone that wants to learn more about Searchlight, what's the best way for them to dig in?
2 ways. Number one, you can visit our website at searchlight.ai. And the second thing, please go follow us on LinkedIn. That'd be great for us.
Well, thanks again. I think that wraps up this episode of Marvin's Corner.